My name is Alex Carter, and at 27, I never thought my corporate cubicle saga would become the moment my life truly changed. Standing outside my boss's office, clutching my promotion rejection letter, I should have felt defeated, but deep down, I sensed a fire igniting. The moment my boss chose to pass over me for that coveted team lead role, I felt their smirk as they placed the envelope on my desk. They thought my ambition didn't matter. But tonight, you'll see exactly why their smug smile vanished when the company recognized me in front of everyone. Before we dive into how I turned that moment into my sweetest vindication, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and hit that like button if you've ever been overlooked when you knew you deserved better. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where ambition was often mistaken for arrogance. My parents, both factory workers, believed hard work was the only path forward, and they instilled in me a relentless work ethic. Weekends were spent helping Dad repair lawnmowers in our garage, learning that every bolt tightened meant a machine. That wouldn't fail. Summers, however, belonged to Mom, who taught me the value of empathy while we delivered Meals on Wheels to our elderly neighbors. Their contrasting lessons, rigor, and compassion shaped me into someone who believed success was about both delivery and heart. In high school, I discovered computers. I'd spend hours teaching myself code, building rudimentary websites that somehow impressed my teachers. While classmates partied on Friday nights, I was hunched over my laptop, debugging JavaScript errors until dawn. By senior year, I'd developed a simple app that tracked homework assignments and study schedules, which the school adopted in our technology lab. That win felt exhilarating, but it wasn't enough to satisfy the itch inside me. I knew I needed to push harder. College felt like a launchpad. I majored in computer science, maintaining a 3.9 GPA while working part-time at the campus tech support center. My roommate Jenna often teased me for my caffeine-fueled all-nighters, but she also reminded me to take breaks and socialize. I'd emerge from our dorm room at sunrise, hair frazzled, coffee cup in hand, head filled with ideas for a startup centered around simplifying small business websites. By sophomore year, I'd partnered with a local cafe owner to build his site. Payments, menus, reservations, and charged a modest fee that barely covered my tuition. My professors praised my practical mindset, while my peers envied my hustle. Despite my academic achievements, I often felt invisible. While I presented winning proposals in group projects and aced every exam, my contributions were frequently overshadowed by louder voices in the room. I remember one group meeting where I laid out a comprehensive framework for a machine learning project. When we presented to the class, our team got the highest marks, but the professor congratulated my teammate Sam for leading the discussion, never mentioning the countless lines of code I'd written. It stung, but I wrote it off as part of the game. If I was going to be noticed, I'd have to leave no doubt. After graduation, I accepted a junior developer position at OrionTech, a mid-sized software firm known for crafting custom CRM solutions. Our office was a converted warehouse with exposed brick walls, open workstations, and the hum of servers in the back corner. My boss, Mark Stevens, was a polished figure, 40-something, always in tailored suits, with a reputation for mentoring a core group of high performers. Among them was Beth Caldwell, a senior developer who seemed to glide through tasks as though she'd been born debugging code. From day one, it was clear that Mark's attention, his nods of approval in team meetings, the congratulatory emails, was reserved for Beth and a few others. In my first 3 months, I volunteered for every extra assignment I could find. When our team scrambled to build a new feature for a major client, I stayed late adding unit tests, refining API calls, and patching security holes. My efforts went largely unnoticed. Mark would say, "Good work," in passing, but never give detailed feedback. Meanwhile, Beth presented our work flawlessly to management, her polished slides overshadowing the back-end logic I'd painstakingly constructed. The day Mark announced a team lead opening on a high-profile CRM project, I thought my moment had arrived. I prepared a detailed proposal outlining resource allocation, sprint timelines, risk mitigation strategies, everything Mark would want to see. I practiced my presentation repeatedly in the mirror, envisioning the look of approval on his face. But when I clicked send on my email, the quiet in my apartment felt like a void. Mark replied within minutes. "Thank you for applying. Alex, we've decided to promote Beth to lead this project. Congratulations, Beth." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, as the truth sank in. Once again, I'd been passed over. That evening, back at my apartment, I locked myself in my bedroom and let the frustration wash over me. My hands shook as I reread his message. Why? Her and not me? I closed my laptop with a thud, the hollow echo matching the emptiness inside. I wanted to blame Mark, to blame Beth, to blame the company culture. But deep down, I knew the only person responsible for my stagnation was me. I needed to outwork, outthink, and outshine them all. I resolved to prove my worth, not by asking Mark for permission, but by making his decision look like a mistake he couldn't ignore. The next morning, bleary-eyed and resolute, I arrived at OrionTech an hour early. I tapped a quick note to my mentor from college, Professor Diaz, who had taught my machine learning course and encouraged my entrepreneurial spark. Feeling passed over. Any advice on making my work impossible to ignore? His reply was immediate. Keep delivering excellence. Document every win. Find allies. Let your results speak louder than their words. I printed that email and pinned it above my desk, a reminder that I wasn't alone. I began taking on side projects outside of work hours. Late nights were spent building a prototype for a predictive analytics dashboard that used our existing CRM data to forecast customer churn rates. If OrionTech could package this as an add-on, we'd differentiate ourselves in a crowded market. I mapped out the entire data pipeline, ETL processes, machine learning models, and a user-friendly front end. When I finished a working demo, I scheduled a casual demo for Mark, whenever he had a moment. He glanced at his calendar, placed a finger on the Friday afternoon slot, and said, "Sure, come by then." Friday arrived. I plugged my laptop into the projector in Mark's office, walked him through the real-time analytics, and watched his expression shift from polite interest to genuine curiosity. But when I asked if we could present it to the senior management team, he said, "This is neat, Alex. Very neat. But for now, let's focus on the project Beth is leading. Maybe next quarter we can discuss further." His tone was genial, but I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I thanked him and walked away, determined not to accept that maybe next quarter as my fate. That weekend, I met with Jenna back at our college town for a quick coffee catch-up. She listened as I recounted my latest attempt to get noticed and Mark's dismissal. "You need more visibility," she said, stirring her latte. "If you keep playing by their rules, they'll keep sidelining you. You have to make a splash so big they can't pretend it's not happening." Her words echoed in my mind as I returned to the city, ready to go all in. I decided to take a calculated risk. I would pitch the predictive analytics dashboard directly to our company's CTO, an aloof figure who rarely interacted with junior staff. My strategy was simple: bypass the chain of command by building such undeniable value that skipping over Mark would be worth it if it meant real innovation. I spent the next 2 weeks refining the code, stressing the system for edge cases, and polishing the user interface so it looked sleek and professional. I also drafted a concise one-page executive summary highlighting how a 5% reduction in churn could translate into six-figure revenue gains annually. On a Tuesday afternoon, I saw my opportunity. The CTO, Jennifer Park, was walking through the open plan office, flanked by a team of senior engineers. I took a deep breath, approached her desk, and said, "Excuse me, Jennifer, do you have a minute? I'd love to show you something I believe could have significant impact on our bottom line." She glanced up, eyebrows raised, and responded with a brief, "Let's do it. Conference room in 15? My heart thudded as I closed my laptop and dashed to reserve the room. Inside the small conference space, I walked Jennifer through the dashboard. I showed her simulated scenarios, how identifying at-risk clients a month, before churn could give our account managers time to intervene with personalized offers. As I clicked through the interactive graphs, I saw Jennifer lean forward, taking notes. When I finished, she nodded slowly. "This is exactly the kind of forward-thinking work we need," she said. "Have you run this by Mark?" I swallowed. "I tried. He said to wait until next quarter." Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "Next quarter? Let me see the code. I want to present this at tomorrow's executive meeting. Be here at 8 a.m. sharp with all your documentation." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I nodded, pulled up the code, and spent the next 12 hours organizing every detail so it was bulletproof. The next morning, I walked into the executive boardroom, palms sweating but head held high. The room was filled with company leadership: Jennifer, the CFO, the head of sales, and a couple of senior product managers. Mark was seated at the far end of the table, his usual confident posture replaced by a faint tension, even though he didn't yet know why I was there. I clicked through the slides, then switched to the live dashboard. As the data scrolled in, the room murmured appreciation. The CFO leaned toward Jennifer, whispering, "This could add millions to our revenue." The head of sales nodded enthusiastically. When I finished, Jennifer turned to the group. "I want everyone to take a moment and recognize the value in what Alex has built. We should fast-track integration into our product line." I felt a rush of triumph, but I held my composure. When the meeting adjourned, Jennifer pulled me aside. "Mark needs to know how valuable this is. I'm putting this on the agenda for today's leadership call. Be prepared to answer questions." I nodded, breathless. Word travels fast in any company, and by noon my inbox was flooded with congratulatory emails from teammates, managers, even clients who had seen the demo. Mark walked past my desk, his face a mask of forced neutrality. "Nice work," he said, eyes flicking to my screen. But there was a hint of unease in his tone that I'd never heard before. I smiled politely, typed, "Thank you," and turned back to my code, savoring the taste of victory. That afternoon, Mark called me into his office. My stomach twisted as I took a seat. He didn't mince words. "I saw your presentation. Impressive work, Alex. I want you to know I've praised you to the leadership team, and you're on their radar now." My heart raced. I nodded, unsure whether to be relieved or skeptical. "They're talking about forming a specialized data analytics unit, and you'll be leading that initiative. Effective immediately, you'll report directly to the CTO." He paused, then added, "I'm sorry I didn't see this sooner." His voice was tight, his gaze flickering with regret. But when I looked at him, I saw something else. His smirk had vanished, replaced by a flicker of something like admiration, mixed with chagrin. I offered a curt smile and said, "Thank you. I'm ready for the challenge." Walking out of his office that day felt surreal. For years, I'd felt sidelined, believing my talents were invisible. In one moment, I'd shifted from overlooked junior to the go-to expert. But I didn't stop there. I recognized that leadership wanted results, so I made sure to keep delivering them at every turn. Over the next 6 months, I built out the data analytics unit from scratch. I hired 2 software engineers I'd met at hackathons, 1 data scientist fresh out of graduate school, and partnered with our UX team to craft intuitive interfaces for our dashboards. Our small team quickly launched 3 new analytics modules: customer churn prediction, sales opportunity scoring, and a real-time KPI monitor for executive dashboards. Within 3 months of launch, we saw a measurable 4% reduction in churn and a 12% increase in average deal size, figures that translated into a mid-6-figure increase in annual revenue. Each milestone was documented in detailed reports that made clear in real terms the value we were creating. Throughout that time, Mark's attitude shifted. He no longer relegated me to side tasks. Instead, he consulted me on strategic decisions. When the head of sales asked which new features our major clients needed, Mark would turn to me and say, "Alex, what does the data tell us?" And in those moments, I felt a sense of vindication unlike anything I'd ever known. But I also felt a twinge of empathy. I realized that Mark wasn't malicious. He'd simply been conditioned to give attention to those who spoke loudest or fit his narrow definition of leadership. By elevating the data, I'd forced him to expand his perspective. One afternoon, as I was finalizing a quarterly performance deck, my phone buzzed with a calendar invite. All hands meeting quarterly. Review. The note read, "Please join us in the main auditorium. Recognition segment at 10:15 a.m. I knew what that meant. They'd be acknowledging the analytics unit's results. I felt a familiar knot of anticipation as I made my way to the auditorium, slipping in just as the CEO, Dr. Palmer, took the stage. He opened with financial updates and product roadmap highlights, then said, "Before we move on, I want to recognize a team that's quietly transformed our bottom line this quarter." He motioned to the screen, which displayed a vibrant slide. Data Analytics Excellence Award, Alex Carter and team. The applause erupted, echoing through the hall. I walked up to the stage, my palms sweaty but my posture confident. Dr. Palmer handed me a plaque that read, "Innovator of the Quarter," and introduced me to the gathered employees as the driving force behind our new analytics capabilities. As the CEO spoke, I looked into the audience and found Mark seated in the front row. His usual composure was gone. His jaw was clenched, and his eyes flickered with both pride and what looked like disbelief. I realized that his earlier smirk had been replaced by a mix of respect and regret. He'd been proven wrong, publicly, in front of the entire company. In that moment, I felt my own smile spread across my face. Their smirks had vanished. After the meeting, people crowded around me, offering handshakes and excited chatter. "How did you do that? What's next for analytics? Can we integrate this into our division?" I answered each question with the same calm confidence I'd displayed in the boardroom, knowing that this recognition was not just a personal win, it was a validation. That meritocracy could prevail even in a hierarchy built on favoritism. In the weeks that followed, my life changed in ways I'd never anticipated. News of our analytics success reached clients who began requesting deeper data integration, bumping their contracts up to six-figure deals. The CTO offered me a seat on the Innovation Council, a small group that shaped our 5-year technology roadmap. I found myself mentoring new engineers, sharing with them the principles of tenacity, documentation, and strategic networking that had guided me. Wherever I went, people called me the data guy, and while I appreciated the recognition, I never forgot how invisible I'd once felt. Mark and I eventually had a frank conversation. We met in his office one late afternoon, the golden hour sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Alex, I want to apologize again for passing you over," he began. "I realize now I was short-sighted. You brought me results I didn't even know were possible. I want to thank you." I nodded, folding my hands on my lap. "I appreciate that, Mark, but it's not about the past. It's about ensuring we never overlook talent again. I'd like to help you develop a more transparent process for identifying high-potential individuals." His expression softened. "I'd appreciate that. Let's work on it." As I left his office, I realized that our dynamic had shifted from boss and overlooked employee to colleagues united by a shared goal, building a better company. In my personal life, things began to stabilize as well. My roommate Jenna cheered me on as I closed on my first home, a modest but cozy condo downtown, within walking distance of our office and the neighborhood coffee shops I frequented. She teased me that I'd gone from late-night coder in a cramped apartment to a homeowner with a fully furnished study. My parents flew in for the move-in, pride shining in their eyes when I gave them a tour. The living room with its skyline view, the kitchen where I brewed coffee each morning, and the study, where I'd built countless dashboards. My mom wiped a tear as I explained how hard I'd worked to get here. "We're so proud of you, Alex," she said. For once, I let myself feel that pride without any layers of self-doubt. As the year went on, I received an unexpected email from Professor Diaz, my college mentor, inviting me to speak at a symposium on innovation in technology. He wrote, "We're highlighting alumni who've made a substantial impact in their fields. You're exactly the example we want." Standing on that stage, looking out at a sea of eager students and faculty, I felt a profound sense of completion. I remembered the young version of myself hacking away in the dorm room, dreaming of a moment like this. I shared my story, not to brag, but to show that being passed over doesn't mean being passed by. I emphasized the importance of relentless excellence, strategic visibility, and building relationships with mentors who genuinely see your potential. Months later, I learned that OrionTech had established an internal data innovation scholarship, in my name, aimed at supporting underrepresented students pursuing data science and computer engineering. The first recipient was a young woman who'd built a machine learning model to predict wildfire spread in her rural community. When I met her at the scholarship ceremony, she asked, "How did you stay motivated when no one noticed your work?" I smiled and replied, "I realized that my worth wasn't dependent on anyone else's recognition. I knew I was capable, and that belief kept me going. When you believe in yourself, eventually others will follow." Looking back, the moment my boss passed over me was the catalyst I needed. It forced me to double down, to find ways around obstacles, rather than waiting for permission. It taught me that success isn't just about being good at what you do. It's about being impossible to ignore. My boss's smirk vanished when the broader world recognized what I'd built with my own determination. Their belated praise, while welcome, no longer held power over me. I had proven my value to myself, and that self-worth continues to guide me every day. Now, I want to turn it over to you. Have you ever been overlooked by a manager, a teacher, a family member, someone whose opinion seemed to define your worth? How did you respond? And what steps did you take to ensure your talents weren't wasted? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonates, if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of underdogs who refuse to stay down. Remember, sometimes the people who doubt you can motivate you the most. Not so you can earn their approval, but so you can discover just how far you can truly soar. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.